Something is brewing in Boston, and no one is talking about it. Something is happening behind closed doors at the Auerbach Center that no one in the national media is prepared to acknowledge. And it's not just about Charles Bassey or Vooch or any single name floating in the rumor winds. This goes deeper. It's about the Celtics quietly constructing a new layer beneath what the public believes is already a championship roster. It's about an opportunity that has never existed before in quite this way. Not in Boston, not in the NBA, not with this kind of strategic patience and raw power at a glance. The Celtics' offseason appears tame. A few moves here and there, a rotation question or two, maybe a roster spot left open. But those paying closer attention, those connecting dots, reading between lines, watching for the silence where there should be noise, know better. Let's talk about the silence, that missing 15th roster spot. It's not a vacancy, it's a loaded chamber. The team is holding back, and you have to ask why. Not because they're unprepared, not because the market dried up, not because they're undecided. It's because they know something, and they're waiting. Charles Bassey wasn't supposed to matter until he did. It would be easy to brush off Bassey's summer league performance. Veterans are supposed to dominate. Younger players, right? But here's where most observers get it wrong. Bassey wasn't just dominating, he was disrupting. The tempo shifted when he stepped on the floor. The Celtics' defensive intensity hardened. Second chance points vanished. For opponents, every offensive set ran with more confidence. He wasn't just playing well, he was asserting himself as a viable solution to a problem the Celtics haven't fully addressed in years, and yet most insiders assumed he was showcasing for a European contract. Why? Because that's what players in his position usually do. But Bassey is not usual. He's not chasing minutes in Turkey or trying to become the next big man in the Adriatic League. He wants Boston. He sees something most don't. And that's where the story starts to twist. The Celtics don't have a big problem. They have a big opportunity. Everyone is obsessed with the fact that the Celtics didn't go Ellen on a big-name center this summer. But what if they didn't need to? What if the plan has always been different? What if they're not scrambling to fill a gap, but quietly auditioning depth for a far more calculated rotation? Xavier Tillman, Neemias Queta, maybe Charles Bassey, maybe someone else entirely who hasn't even surfaced in reports yet. That empty roster spot isn't a flaw. It's a weapon waiting to be drawn. And if Boston decides to pull the trigger, they won't be throwing a Hail Mary. They'll be executing a plan they've been rehearsing since last February. Vucevic. The buyout nobody's prepared for, and then there's Vooch. Nikola Vucevic is circling the NBA's radar in a way no one predicted when he re-signed in Chicago, but the Bulls are imploding. And a quiet buyout is now more likely than most fans realize. Now imagine this. It's mid-season. The Celtics are surging. Tatum is nearing return, and Vucevic is suddenly available for the vet minimum because Chicago has cut bait, and the Lakers are interested. Of course, but he chooses potential addition. He's a negotiating tool. His inclusion in any hypothetical move tells you something about how the front office is preparing its budget and aligning its timeline. If Boston doesn't pursue Simons, it's not because they can't use him. It's because their real target may require that same cap space. Think of Simons not as a target, but as a placeholder. A signal that Stevens is holding position while watching a bigger move develop. Remember, Brad Stevens didn't gut the roster to hover just below the second apron. He did it to own flexibility. Flexibility to strike at the precise moment the right deal becomes available. That's not conservative management. That's silent aggression. This season isn't a gamble. It's a setup. The national story wants you to believe the Celtics might be punting this year. That without Tatum at full health, they're limping through a season that will be chalked up to bad luck. But what if it's not about survival? What if it's about precision? By managing the cap now, they ensure next year is sustainable. By resisting the urge to overspend now, they make room for the exact piece they actually want when the time is right. You can't build a dynasty on emergency spending. You build it on knowing when to wait and knowing when to strike. The WNBA move isn't just optics, and here's where the fog starts to lift. The ownership group just pulled off a quiet, strategic move by acquiring and relocating the Connecticut Sun to Boston. A play that has nothing to do with short-term cash flow and everything to do with influence. City synergy and brand gravity. Boston is building a basketball empire, not a team, not a contender, an empire. More visibility, more year-round engagement, more scouting reach, more developmental pathways, more partnerships, more leverage. When a city becomes a multi-league basketball hub, it changes how players view it. It changes how agents pitch it. It changes how talent flows. The Lakers are watching. So are the Celtics. And here's the kicker. The Lakers have been gifted Tatum, Marcus Smart, and possibly Vucevic, and still look shaky. Boston has been patient, calculated, and quiet, and still owns the East. What if the Celtics' next breakout center has already made his case and no one in the league is paying attention? Charles Bassey is not a name that sends shockwaves through NBA circles yet. But if you look closer, far from the headlines and free agency chaos, something unusual is brewing. After years of being buried behind two generational giants, Joel Embiid in Philadelphia and Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio, Bassey might finally be standing at the edge of his moment, and the Boston Celtics might be the team that unleashes him. Forget what you think you know about Summer League. For most fans, it's a chaotic mix of rookies, long shots, and anonymous jerseys. But for Charles Bassey, Las Vegas wasn't just an audition, it was a warning shot. With just over 20 minutes per game, Bassey averaged 15.3 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks, often facing players years younger and hungrier. Still, he dominated, quietly, decisively, and consistently. While Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman grabbed the headlines, Bassey dismantled opposing bigs in ways that stat sheets can't fully explain now. A month before the Celtics training camp begins, Bassey isn't just knocking on the door. He's demanding a seat at the table. Here's the twist: Boston has a roster spot open. They waived J.D. Davison in July, a move that seemed minor at the time. But now, it may turn out to be the opening that redefines the back end of their rotation. Other teams have noticed. Partizan Belgrade made a strong push for Bassey. But according to SB Nation's Noah Delzell, the big man has his sights set firmly on Boston. Why? Timing, opportunity, and something else nobody's really talking about. The Celtics' frontcourt situation is far from settled. Kristaps Porzingis is gone. Al Horford is unsigned. The center rotation heading into October includes Neemias Queta, Xavier Tillman, Amari Williams, and Luka Garza. All solid, all promising, but none with the blend of physicality, vertical explosion, and sheer rim protection Bassey showed this summer. If he's given the green light, he won't just survive in this system. He might thrive. Jason Tatum is injured. But what one scout saw in Las Vegas defies everything we thought we knew about this kind of recovery. The basketball world is still processing the torn Achilles that took Jason Tatum off the court during the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Knicks, but what few have noticed is that the Celtics' silence since then might be hiding a story even more astonishing than the injury itself. An NBA scout recently saw Tatum at the CP3 Elite Camp hosted by Chris Paul, and walked away not just hopeful, but completely shocked. And it wasn't because of some intense drill or flashy play. It was because of what Tatum's body didn't show. He wasn't wearing a boot, had no visible support, and moved with a lightness that simply doesn't make sense for someone who tore their Achilles tendon less than 3 months ago. He was moving really well, maybe a slight limp or something, but the surprising part to me was that he wasn't wearing a boot. The scout told Steve Bulpett of Heavy, "I'm no doctor, but I've seen guys coming back from Achilles injuries, and he looked way ahead." I was kind of shocked at how well he was moving. But why does this matter so much? Because a torn Achilles is often a death sentence for players who rely on burst, change of direction, and agility. It's the kind of injury that turns stars into cautionary tales. But with Tatum, it feels like the script has been ripped apart and rewritten in secret. And the strangest part, the complete lack of buzz. No official videos, no dramatic press conferences, no footage of intense workouts. Just rumors, testimonies, and a trail of quietly growing clues. Brad Stevens, Celtics president of basketball operations, revealed that Tatum didn't take his usual postseason vacation, but instead stayed in Boston every day, locked in on rehab. He didn't disappear into a California mansion or vanish into off-season shadows. He stayed, training quietly. He's competitive in everything he does, even in rehab, Stevens said, hinting at something the rest of the world might not yet fully understand. Tatum's recovery isn't following the normal playbook, and that opens up a massive question. Could he actually return this season? The initial projections were grim, with most expecting him to miss the